Welcome to my channel. My name is Mario and this is Project JoyBoy. About a year ago, I converted a 1980s Honda motorcycle to electric by way of a Yuma hub motor and some pretty cheap A123 cells. After completing that build, I began to look into the market and kind of like look for stuff that matched this price and value, and really couldn't find anything. So I decided to build something better, something not on the market. Firstly, design. This is a 2007 Street Rod, and it's built on a VRS platform. V-Rod is arguably one of the coolest motorcycles Harley's ever produced. Looking at them side by side, yeah. Shout out to the guy that designed this on Fiverr. I'll link his information below. Okay, so I wanted to give you guys a little bit of background on how this motorcycle came to be and what I told the designer off of Fiverr. So there's a few students over at E-Tech University, and they designed this electric motorcycle, and it's really cool. I loved how they had the controller on the side with the liquid cooling exposed. It kind of gave it more of a futuristic but minimal look, and I really liked it. I knew it was something I wanted to go off of. So while just figuring out the design for this bike, a whole lot of custom Harleys were popping up in my timeline, and I came across this one. I really like the oval shaped headlight that comes from maybe the Fat Boy or the Sportster, or one of the newer models has this oval shaped headlight. It goes and kind of matches with this oval shaped scoop on the airbox cover, which at the time I had never seen this body kit, but since then I've seen it several times. And it also has a part of the seat that kind of keeps you in, a scoop or whatever you may call it, and it definitely set the build off, and I knew I wanted this bike. So with these two bikes in mind, and I knew that I wanted a combination of the two, I thought that maybe it was something that I could do myself. So I took to my computer, and this is the result. Now, of course, I was not satisfied with that. I immediately realized just how hard just doing 3D rendering and just this whole Photoshop, where I learned just how hard that actually is. And so I reached out to someone on Fiverr, and I told them pretty much that I wanted this bike with the interior and like this electronic portion where the engine goes here, and he definitely knocked that out the park. So the big three for the spec sheet warriors are motor, controller, and battery. I have a 15 kilowatt Yuma hub motor. More specifically, Yuma is a direct competitor of QS motors and produces just as powerful and underrated motors. I picked this hub motor because it's rated to do 85 miles per hour continuously, making it a perfect highway motor. Liquid cooled 72-1800 Fardriver controller, capable of 800 DC amps and 1800 phase amps. Fardriver has a pretty good controller, although it isn't the VSC base. It's still pretty good. I opted for the liquid cooling because I plan on pushing this controller to really see if it pulls 800 amps, not to mention the 100 degrees summer heat, as well as a liquid cooled 16.7 kilowatt hour battery. The nickel cobalt manganese NCM cells are 3.7 volt, 116 amp hour, configured in two 20S 1P modules in parallel. That gives us a total of 72 volts and 232 amp hours. It's capable of 5C, which is 580 amps discharge, and 3C, 350 amps charge. We're using two 300 amp smart JK BMSs and two knee active balancers to monitor and maintain health. Now, in order to truly execute this battery, I needed to somewhat learn to machine and purchase an expensive CNC mill or utilize Sin Cut Sin. But there's honestly no fun in utilizing Sin Cut Sin. So the battery will be built using custom billet aluminum parts. As far as top speed, this is what the manufacturer, Yuma, got during testing with a smaller Volta controller. 250 kilometers per hour is equal to about 155 miles per hour. Now, this is serious speed. We're using a much larger controller, so I expect at least the same min and max. I was provided two documents. The first is the spec sheet. Brushless DC motor and 17 inches with a rated speed of 150 kilometers per hour to 200 kilometers per hour. Rated RPM of 1350. Max speed of 200 to 250 kilometers per hour. A max RPM of 2000. It's rated for 72 volts and is also rated for 15 kilowatts. The rated torque is 220 newton meters. Max torque is 440 newton meters. And the
Size of the wire, they do it in millimeters, so we have a 50 millimeter squared cross section of the phase wire.
This is a graph where Yuma tested the motor using a 72 1800 Fardriver controller with a max output of 440 amps. The controller is capable of 800 amps and the motor can go even further. I may be upgrading to the 72 2400 race version if everything goes as planned. They use this data to make the spec sheet, so some of the things on here are a bit redundant. There are two things I specifically wanted to focus on. The first is the max torque. The second would be the speed, or rather RPM, that is at when it reaches the max torque. Firstly, the max torque being 440 newton meters, which is equal to 324 pound-feet, is crazy work. The max torque of the internal combustion engine is about 84 pound-feet, so we have almost 4 times as much torque as the internal combustion engine. Now it should reach the max torque at 453 RPM, which is equal to about 30 miles per hour. So I expect the 40 to 80 pull to feel like getting shot out of a rocket. We're shooting for about 70 to 80 miles on the highway, given that the required amps for sustaining 70 miles per hour is about 200 amps. 200 plus miles in the city, given that it pulls 60 amps to sustain 45 miles per hour. As of now, on paper, the bike should be around 450 pounds, give or take a few, and should have a sub 4 second 0 to 60. That's what we're shooting for. Charge time of about 5 hours from 0 to 100 with the 3.3 kilowatt long run charger. They sell a 6.6 and even a 9.9. So with the 3.3 kilowatt charger, it's outputting 84 volts at 40 amps continuous. The 9.9 kilowatt charger would have costed 3 times the price and charge the bike from 0 to 100 in just 2 hours. If you've made it this far in the video, please give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing. This is only the beginning of many more builds to come. On the next episode of Project JoyBoy, we remove the internal combustion engine and all of the components needed to make it work.